climb into this confined steel box, sense the immense pressure of 45 tons transmitted through its narrow tracks. Your hands wrap around controls that are slow and unresponsive. Behind you, an engine snarls, a volatile creature that might fail at any second. This is the Panther, Germany's proclaimed wonder weapon tank, the very machine that malfunctioned more frequently than it saw combat. The vehicle that was more familiar with repair bays than with front lines. What Allied crews found when they entered these captured German machines would overturn every preconceived notion about armored combat and reshape a pivotal debate in military history. December 1944, the snow-blanketed woods of the Ardennes. American tankers waited inside their Shermans, observing German armor emerge through the fog. Panthers, the streamlined hunters of the conflict. 45 tons of angled steel and a long-barreled 75mm cannon. The rumors were known to every American crew. A single Panther could engage 5 Shermans and prevail. The German tank's front hull armor was 80mm thick, sloped at 55 degrees, giving it the effective resistance of 139mm. Its turret front was 100mm. Its KWK-42 L-70 gun could destroy a Sherman from beyond 2,000 meters. The Americans grimly nicknamed their own tanks Ronsons, referring to the lighter that lights every time. Climbing into their 33-ton Shermans on that frozen morning, the crews were aware of the statistics. They knew the Panther outranged them. They knew their 75mm shells would likely bounce off its front. They understood that in a direct, long-range duel, they stood at a disadvantage. The German tankers were confident as well. They had been assured their Panthers were unbeatable, that American tanks were inferior in all respects. Propaganda footage depicted Panthers smashing one Sherman after another, German engineering prevailing over American quantity. The Panther had been created as a direct answer to the Soviet T-34. After German troops met T-34s in Operation Barbarossa in 1941, especially during the Battle of Mtsensk in October 1941, the German High Command urgently assembled a special armor commission, the Panther Commission, formed in November 1941. The design from Man was chosen in May 1942. The first prototype was ready by September 1942, and production commenced in January 1943. On paper, it seemed flawless, the ideal medium tank. Nearly every technical measurement favored the German vehicle. Yet an odd pattern emerged as American forces advanced into Germany. Recovery units began discovering abandoned Panthers, not destroyed by enemy fire, not damaged by mines, simply left behind by their crews. Engines cold, fuel tanks still full, transmissions seized, final drives broken. Some Allied units did capture and tried to use Panthers. The British Coldstream Guards famously used one they named Cuckoo in fighting around Geilenkirchen and in Operation Blackcock in January 1945. Canadian forces took an intact Panther in Italy in October 1944, called it Deserter, and employed it in several attacks before shipping it for analysis. Polish resistance fighters seized 2 Panthers during the Warsaw Uprising in August 1944. They used them to eliminate German machine gun positions and to help free the Gęziewka concentration camp, liberating 348 prisoners. However, within days, both Panthers were unusable due to a lack of fuel and batteries and had to be burned to avoid recapture. The trend was clear. Captured Panthers could be formidable for brief periods. Then they broke down. The British, who assembled 9 Panthers after the war using German parts and technicians, attempted standard acceptance trials in 1947. They could not finish them. The Panthers repeatedly failed. The British report concluded that very little information of any value was obtained due to the general mechanical unreliability of the Panther. The French army, which operated Panther units after the war using captured vehicles, performed the most detailed assessment. Their 1947 technical report, Le Panther, stated bluntly, "The truly weak spot of the Panther is its final drive, which is of too weak a design and has an average fatigue life of only 150 kilometers. Let that resonate. 150 kilometers, less than 100 miles before the final drives, the components transferring power from the transmission to the tracks, needed full replacement. German wartime records verified this disastrous failure rate. General Guderian wrote in June 1944, "The lifespan of the Panther's motors, 1,400 to 1,500 kilometers, is significantly higher than the Panther's final drives. A solution to the final drive problem is urgently needed." A report from the Eastern Front covering March to April 1944 noted that since March 1st, 13 final drives had been replaced in 30 Panthers. A January 1945 Panzer Commission report listed 370 defective final drives from Panthers needing replacement. In Normandy, half of all abandoned Panthers showed final drive failure as the main mechanical fault. The technical reason was well documented. Mann's original design specified epicyclic planetary gearing. This was switched to a double spur gear system because of gear-cutting machinery shortages in German industry. The double spur gears suffered from inherently higher internal impact and stress. This was the fatal flaw. The Panther's drivetrain had been intended for a 30 to 35-ton vehicle, but Hitler insisted on additional armor and a heavier gun during development. The final production Panther weighed 45 tons. The final drive housings, designed for a lighter tank, simply could not cope. The housings bent under stress, the internal gears jammed, and destroyed themselves. By comparison, Sherman final drives could last for thousands of kilometers without major service. French operational use of captured Panthers from 1946 to 1950 repeatedly confirmed the 150-kilometer failure rate. The Maybach HL-230 engine, though potent at 690 horsepower, had persistent reliability issues. During Operation Citadel at Kursk in July 1943, Panzerabteilung 51 experienced 20 fuel pump failures by July 8. Fuel leaks from these failures caused 3 Panthers to be totally lost to engine fires. 2 Panthers from the initial deployment burned out from engine fires just after unloading from trains before combat even started. Documented Maybach engine troubles included cylinder head gasket failures, broken connecting rods, fractured oil pump drive shafts, engine fires from oil leaking onto hot exhaust manifolds, cooling fan drive bearing failures, and chronic overheating. The Germans reduced the engine's maximum RPM from 3,000 to 2,500 in November 1943 to extend its life. This lowered top speed from 34 miles per hour to 28 miles per hour and power from 700 to 580. Even after this adjustment, the average Maybach engine life in Panthers was about 1,000 kilometers. According to the French post-war technical report, maximum life reached 1,400 to 1,800 kilometers in some instances. The Panther's turret traverse system added another layer of complexity. Early models used a single-speed hydraulic system needing about 60 seconds for a full rotation. Later models had selectable high and low gear ratios. At 2,500 RPM in high gear, the turret could transverse in 17 to 18 seconds. At low RPM or in low gear, transverse time stretched to 60 to 93 seconds. The system's performance constantly varied with engine speed. If the engine stalled, the turret could not move at all. The Sherman, in contrast, used an independent auxiliary electric motor. The Sherman's turret always transversed in 15 seconds, engine speed irrelevant. The commander could transverse the turret even with the main engine off using the backup generator. This consistency offered a major tactical advantage. The Panther's theoretically faster transverse at optimal engine speed was irrelevant when mechanical failures stopped the engine or when tactical situations required turret movement with the engine idling. The 7-speed manual transmission was stiff and challenging to shift. Every gear change was a struggle. Sherman transmissions were smooth and almost automatic. The Panther's narrow track width, despite favorable ground pressure on paper, meant less actual contact with soft ground. In mud and snow, Panthers often got stuck. Their excellent cross-country performance applied only to firm, dry terrain. The Sherman's wider tracks gave better real-world traction in diverse conditions. Crew ergonomics in the Panther were inferior. The interior was dark and cramped. The gunner station was more confined than in a Sherman. The loader had to stretch across the large gun breech in awkward poses to reach ammunition stored around the fighting compartment.
The Sherman's ammunition storage had ready racks easily accessible to the loader. Everything was arranged logically. American automotive engineers had designed the Sherman using the same human factor principles they applied to cars. Make it easy for the operator. By March 1945, complaints from American tankers about facing Panthers and Tigers had reached General Eisenhower repeatedly. He wrote to the commanding generals of the 2nd and 3rd Armored Divisions asking for detailed evaluations. General White, commander of the 2nd Armored Division, began his reply by asking Eisenhower to make allowances for the traditional enthusiasm displayed by the American soldier when given the opportunity to express himself regarding any possible shortcomings in his equipment. General Collier, commander of Combat Command A of the 2nd Armored Division, gave a detailed assessment. The consensus of opinion of all personnel in the 66th Armored Regiment is that the German tank